well.
Yeah.
I find that I find that very inspiring, interesting, quite uplifting, but at the same time, it is very strange. I mean,
yes, very strange.
It's something which has not happened, at sort of any, other point in sort of, human evolution, sort of post the flood.
I see what you mean. Well, exactly. I have this idea also that actually when you think about it, this is people from very different backgrounds and very different cultural backgrounds. We can even talk about things of like, what it's considered to be ethics and not and so forth. But all of a sudden we find ourselves in a situation here where all these people are supposed to gather at this one place called the internet, and we're having kind of a preconceived idea that everyone should get along, and unfortunately we are, this fact, dawns upon us every day. If you go in and just look at some of the comments on a blog or a YouTube clip, I mean, it is a lot of fighting going on. I mean, what is going on here? I mean, this might be a period of where we're trying to break new ground and try to find a common ground, I guess, over the web. Any ideas on this, guys?
Yeah, well, so just briefly, if I can interject here, I would say that the synchronistic world, or the occult conspiracy world, which is, I guess, my field, which of course bleeds into Jake's work and synchronisticism, generally, I would say I've been, very impressed at how friendly and how unified, our small scene still is. But of course, as you go further out into conspiracy sort of culture more sort of generally, yes, it's absolutely riven with infighting. And I don't know why that is, apart from that's how human beings are, isn't it? I mean, it's part of the conspiracy. It's sort of part of that conspiracy of DNA.
Yeah.
Jake?
I feel it's it's belief systems, because what we're doing in conspiracy research, which I see as only a small part of what I'm interested in, a fascinating part, but only a small part, is we're literally trying to redefine sort of the basic parameters of how society and culture is structured. Right. We're saying that it's being, run by forces, or massively influenced, I prefer to say, by forces that are, very hidden. And when you're doing that, you're obviously you're threatening people's fundamental, basic belief systems, and people are willing to kill literally for that. So it seems innocuous what we're doing, but we're actually very threatening to certain people. If you are identified with your thoughts and your beliefs to such an extent, you'll kill people for them. I mean, that's what religions and wars are about. And I see it as, in the conspiracy research fields, people are very, identified with how they believe it works. So, people are always fighting about who is the real conspirators and who is the New World Order and all this kind of thing. Right. And people are very attached to their belief systems about it. So obviously there will be lots of infighting, because it's very vital to a lot of people's existence, these things.
Exactly. I think you're absolutely right there. It's something because again, this is something that is, it is real. I mean, for people, even though that it is a theory in some cases, and in some cases it is reality, and where one draws the line is a very personal and individual thing. And so it's bound to be, that people argue over these things,
That's right. Yeah.
But
I do feel like there's the internet and this process of butting heads with everybody, and everybody having the opportunity to do it, is part of a new dawning of a resolution, a solution to this problem of all these belief systems clashing together on this one field. And yes, it does look like absolute chaos if you go on YouTube and you look at the comments sections, and the further away the work gets from the core people who are already totally on board, the synchronistic circle, and we all send each other comments. But the further out these ideas come, and the more they're accepted and the more they grow, the more opposition it will obviously reach. And still, it's people are jostling to decide what they believe about this new form of research. And it's fascinating to see whether it will be greater accepted, because it seems like it is being very fastly integrated into at least on the internet, wider and wider. I see people referencing synchromysticism and these kinds of ideas, this sort of non-local thinking, and I hope it keeps growing. But it's fascinating because I don't know, it's like new ground. So it's like a new interactive book, and me and Ben are like part of this new way of putting your work out. Like, at this moment, I'm not an author, I'm not a filmmaker, I'm just a blogger, really, and but it's like an interactive new thing. It doesn't even have a name, what we're doing. I don't believe it does, actually. So,
Ben, any thoughts on this?
Well, I'm just trying to think. I mean, I once again, Jake sort of is deeply optimistic, and I possibly, sort of moderately less so. But sort of certainly, I believe that so one of the things which we do, and it's so difficult and yet so simple, but sort of standing back and sort of not being so deeply invested in our beliefs, in our secrecy, in our egos, in our rank, in our position. Here are 5 or 6 key solutions. I mean, I've just really outlined there how we can break this global conspiracy down, and yet it begins with the individual, and so consequently people are scared of that. So people want solutions which start with, sort of throwing petrol bombs at the Bilderbergers and so forth, which, so quite frankly, I think that might be rather a good idea, but of course I'm not encouraging that, kids. More fundamentally, I'm sort of looking to ourselves and stopping being so invested in our rank, in our opinions, and all those things which I've just mentioned are so much more key and so much more vital. But yet are ultimately more difficult, it seems, for most people. And I don't understand why. I guess I do understand why, but...
do you want to elaborate on that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, okay. I mean, if I can just sort of say this very briefly, but so one of the things which my friend Ellis Taylor, he's a great friend of mine and a superb researcher, has said about so many of the people in the synchronistic world and the occult conspiracy world is that he believes that some of us are new humans. This is how he describes us and them, because he's certainly part of them. But sort of new humans is one of these Aquarian phrases which has been very much, I suppose, co-opted by the New Age movement, and it sounds deeply flaky and very cosmic, and hey guys, we're all aliens and so forth. I don't necessarily believe that, but certainly I do think that there is a new consciousness which is manifesting itself through people like Jake, through sites like Red Eyes, and quite possibly through people like me as well.
Of course.
And I think that's I think that is very inspiring and uplifting.
Indeed. Jake, any thoughts on this?
Yeah. I find it such a tricky subject. For me, this really comes to the core of like my the things that I identify with and my own perception of my work and myself and what it means to other people. It's so fraught with ego in this battle with how I view myself and my own importance or unimportance. So it's such a tricky subject for me to talk about. Tell the truth, when you ask me that question, I'm immediately afraid because I feel like what I say is going to really challenge myself when I'm done with this interview about how I my own perception of myself, because I'm not at this point thoroughly at peace with that. I haven't actually come to terms with how I view myself and what my work means and anything like that. So I don't really know what to say. I don't.
But I guess you would agree that the small, the loose network, so to speak, of people that are very into this kind of information and the concept that is something brand new, something new is happening, and we're all trying to working it out as we go along, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. No, I mean it's a wonderful experience to be part of this. And I don't know what to say.
Sure. Okay. Ben?
Oh yeah, I was just going to add that sort of certainly I have noticed things building up, and I've seen things grow and develop. Even over the now almost 2 years of research which I've been doing. In fact, it's slightly longer, but on the net I've only been active for sort of coming up for 2 years, and I have seen things grow within myself and within my own understanding. And of course, I see that in Jake's work. I see that in Steve Warner, who gave a superb interview on your station not too long ago. And I just I heard Steve talk, and I have to say, sort of then I thought to myself, my goodness, I actually think that this synchronistic thing is going to have legs. It's going to live because it has young, intelligent, creative people like that excited about it. And I find that to be very positive, very positive indeed.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely, exactly. So okay, guys, do you want to spend a few minutes here and talk a little bit about some of your latest work? We could Ben, we could talk a little bit about some of your articles. We mentioned a little bit some of the ideas that you've been expressing, but as I said, you've been kind of looking a little bit about on some of the murders that has been going on. Is there just when you kind of pick and choose from all the things that is available out there to write about, is this something very conscious that you kind of, this is an important event, this is something that I'll go with, or is this something just that when it comes to you, you just pick up on it instantly and run with it?
Yeah, well, I mentioned earlier with sort of spotting this sort of key architecture. I can literally sense it now. I can see a building, I can see a sort of sort of piece of pageantry, and I can sort of spot the symbolism and sort of spot the significance of that really quite almost automatically now. And I'm sure I'm not alone in that. It's the whole 99 monkey syndrome stuff going on. And I think that there are now hundreds of thousands of people all over the world who do exactly the same thing, and who have that sort of talent, if you want to call it that now. And again, this is going to sort of start impacting mainstream perception as well very soon. In fact, it already is. It already is. Sort of certainly online.
Yeah.
And sort of certainly, I think with the sort of journalism, it's the same thing. I just find now that I have a sense for stuff that's happening, and I can just about almost tell you in advance. When sort of stories are going to possess this kind of resonance, as Jake would say, and he's absolutely right. For example, I didn't even necessarily take a great deal of interest in the story of Madeleine McCann and Meredith Kercher until sort of some days after they had begun. But I almost automatically knew as soon as I heard it that there was something there. I knew that the names were going to start resonating with certain themes which you'd looked at. I knew that the sort of location would probably hold some secrets, and sort of more, sort of most importantly, I knew that the actual nuts and bolts events themselves would also sort of certainly withstand a great deal of scrutiny, and that's what's happened. And so, now, I say this to, I say this to sort of, anybody that cares to listen quite regularly, but, now I feel that, sort of most of this research comes to me in some ways. I don't really need to, go looking, but then at the same time, I am pretty committed. So it's kind of 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, if this is making any sense whatsoever.
Absolutely, and you mentioned a very interesting idea there, or a concept, I think, that almost we're able to kind of, as you say, predict then in advance, and some researchers have suggested that kind of the concept of time actually is something that is, maybe not collapsing, but singularity is a word that pops out, and time loop is another word, and Jake, what are your theories and ideas about this? If we think about the idea that time is something that potentially might be less linear in the future years here to come, and the work that is being done now, or the way that we, people are connecting ideas